Andrés. Hey, Mom. My actual mom is here too. Everybody, I'm so excited for this conversation. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Latanya Reese Miles, or LT. I am I'm a faculty member at Santa Clara University Department of Educational Leadership. And one of my students has joined us, Jiren. Hey, Jiren, nice to have you here.
Hello,
And
hello.
love it. I'm also a director of university partnerships for a company called Re-Up Education, and also a co-founder of an organization dedicated to media advocacy around the first gen, non-traditional learner, adult learner, community college transfer population. And so um, the intersection of those things is partly why we're having this conversation today. Just to be clear, we're talking about the creation of the Breonna Taylor Wiki article that I created that was actually uploaded last June. So just June, just 6 months ago, y'all, June of 2023. How did this come about? And what are some of the implications of it? So I'm going to walk you through the origin story of the creation of the page that currently exists, including my now like great partnership with Wiki EDU, and then also talk about like the impact, the potential impact of that page, um, and we'll invite an expert to the conversation to talk about that. Melissa Barragan, that's you go. And then open it up for questions, honestly. That's like really the goal. Writing and editing for Wikipedia has literally changed my life and transformed the way I think about education and knowledge. And so just wanted to share that information. So happy to get started now. And again, thank you all for being here today. So let me first be like, I'll start at the beginning as the saying goes. So number one, I manage and started a social media platform called First Gen and Juice, in which I was curating the experiences of notable first gen folks. So whether they were first gen in college or first gen post college and first gen professionals, and realized that Breonna Taylor was a first gen student. And I don't know about you all, but I don't know how many of you knew that she was first gen. That story really, that narrative really isn't told about her, right? And she started off at the University of Kentucky, and so grateful to have my sister Martina Martin, who was at the University of Kentucky, and no longer there. But Martina, anything you want to add, feel free to chime in. But for me, I just felt really inspired, also a little bit pissed off too, to know that parts of Brianna's story that weren't being shared. Like I said, she started off at the University of Kentucky. She left after 1 year. And she, started taking community college courses, and her passion was always in the healthcare industry. She had family who worked in that field, and in fact was planning to transfer and make her way back toward her ultimate goal when she was killed. And so, well, let me pause there. Martina, since you are here, I just want to see if there's anything else you want to add about that backstory about Brianna's time at the University of Kentucky. If not, that's cool, but I just thought I'd ask.
No, you actually you got it. You hit it. And the story that I worked with her cousin, Jamal McDaniel. He is actually the director of the Martin Luther King Cultural Center now at the University of Kentucky. And so seeing his lived experiences, especially later as the trial and all those things were happening after the incident, um, again, just seeing that. And I think for their family too, telling the story is so hard. It's very hard for them to put themselves in the position. They just, not that they want to forget, it's just difficult for them to be in that space of telling her story.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think this is one of if I could skip ahead a little bit, part of the power of Wikipedia, right, is being able to share these narratives, these untold stories. At least that's the way I approached it. So I had this information and I like, what do I do? Like I've learned this, I wanted to give it back. And at one point I even reached out to Martina, like, can we do something? Can we write something? Like to talk about what's sort of missing from from this narrative, right? And so me being me, started just doing some Googling, and because one of the vehicles that I use to learn about folks is Wikipedia, right? And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if I could like share this information in a on a platform that reaches literally millions and billions of people. Well, did a little Google search, boop, 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 typed in Breonna Taylor, and what popped up was an article called The Killing of Breonna Taylor. And that was it. And so, as the title implies, it really was all this narrative. I mean, you can go, like, if you Google right now, that's probably the first article that pops up is the killing of Breonna Taylor. And I thought, again, what a tragedy, what a shame, really, another form of injustice that we don't even have an article that's just about her life and who she was as a person. And all we get was the fact that she was killed. But then on the other hand, there are articles about George Floyd. Um, Similarly, life taken by police officers, um, that was racialized, but there's both a page about his death, but also, again, you Google it right now, a very vibrant article about his life, including, some photos and all that he accomplished. And so um, that sort of set me off on my path. It would have been almost a year ago, Andres, where I learned about Wiki EDU. And I thought, how could I like get involved? I'm not even sure I was even exactly thinking about creating a page. I just wanted to do something. And so I reached out and got connected with Andres Vera. And Andres, if you could talk more about like what's your role and what is Wiki EDU, and maybe we can go from there.
Sure thing. I'm really happy to that we did get introduced, and I'm so glad that we can have this session today. And I'm also happy that three of my colleagues are on this call. And so essentially, Wiki Education exists to be the bridge between academia and Wikipedia, and we strive to and work to improve the quality of knowledge on Wikipedia. Specifically, my role at Wiki Education is my title is Equity Outreach Coordinator. So I reach out to, I do a majority of my outreach is to HBCUs, HSIs, and TCUs to encourage them to teach with Wikipedia. That also includes all kinds of institutions as well. That's part of my job now, is to reach out to all institutions to encourage instructors from all US accredited institutions to teach with Wikipedia. I'm really happy. The way that LT and I really got connected was because there was an initiative by the Broadcom Foundation to increase the amount of underrepresented STEM biographies on Wikipedia. And I was reaching out to a ton of people and instructors, and I got a note from LT. And at first, we definitely, this initiative comes with a stipend, and we definitely want to be able to give the stipend to institutions that have a large representative of minority students. And so I was so glad that Santa Clara University has a large representation of minority students, and we were able to work with LT in this way. And her class really did a lot of phenomenal work. I think it was Brianda, do you know how many, I'm not recalling how many biographies your class created, LT, do you remember?
I don't. And I can back up to say how we even got to the class part, right? Because yeah. So first of all, let me say I'm a first gen professional. And so there's just some characteristics that I share that just go beyond sort of education, which was like hustling and trying to figure things out because the hidden curriculum is real. And so the hidden curriculum of Wikipedia is another thing that I face. Like, well, how do you even do this, right? When I look at Wikipedia, it just seems like, oh, like magic, like the things just suddenly appear. And so when I initially reached out to Andres, it was an at first I was thinking about myself, right? I wanted to do something. I wanted to focus on first gens and do something with Breonna Taylor. And Andres gave me such great advice just in terms of like, hey, learn how to do this yourself, right? And then go about training others. And the first group of others that we focused on were grad students that I was planning to teach. So again, Santa Clara University, Department of Educational Leadership. And I think the class was just on social impact. It was pretty broad, actually. And so what I ended up doing was developing an assignment where all the graduate students in that class had to create a bio, write an article for Wikipedia, and worked with Andres and Brianda and the whole team who were incredibly supportive. So what happened was, as my student, this was a year ago, so this would have been last winter, I guess, or spring. I can't remember what quarter it was. It was a year ago. Last spring?
Yeah.
Yeah, dang, it was just last spring. Oh, that's right, because mine was in June. Yeah, last spring, spring term. So as my students were creating their bio, I also was learning how to write and edit for Wikipedia, and I was creating the article for Breonna Taylor. So it was just as an instructor, it was so great to go through this with them, right? To learn at the same time. And when they face challenges, I was like, yeah, I'm going through this as well, right? Um, so that's how it all came about, is me doing this alongside my students. Like Andres mentioned, there was support from Broadcom. So nice to have a little stipend, but that definitely wasn't the motivating factor, y'all. Just wanted to clarify that. And so it's really interesting when it comes to, and maybe Brandon, you could talk a little bit about this too, about, okay, when you go about creating a page, like who's worthy of a page, right? And why are some people considered notable and not? What kind of sources do you have to use, right? And there's always this fear and this threat that the page will be overturned in some way, or someone's gonna say, why are you writing this page about Breonna Taylor? And I could say more about that. I did have one person challenge me so far. But we could talk more, but I don't know. Brianna, I don't know if you want to say anything about the conversations you and I had about this particular subject matter.
Yeah. I'll talk a little bit real quick. So as LT mentioned, right, Wikipedia has a set of policies and guidelines, right, to make sure that topics that go on there are notable or significant, right, to the community, right? And so it's like, for example, like my dog can have a Wikipedia article, but if my dog had the LA Times writing about it, then maybe, they could. And so there's this policy called notability, right? And so in order for a topic to have a Wikipedia page, they have to satisfy this notability criteria. And what that means is that, so let me say this real quick, right? Wikipedia, or the community, uses this notability guideline to put essentially the onus on like whatever community this topic is coming from, right? They say, if this topic is notable to these people or this community, this society, then they'll have written about it, right? And so then that's how it gets decided what goes on Wikipedia, right? What topic can have an article. And so what that means is that this topic will be published in what Wikipedia calls reliable sources, right? So there will be significant coverage of this topic in reliable sources. And this will, right, when you are writing about a topic, you'll collect these reliable sources to prove, right? Be like, here's my long list of reliable sources that this topic deserves a Wikipedia page, right? And so you kind of have to show, right, prove that case for a page to be up, to be on MainSpace. And so that's kind of the process for creating a page. And so when we were creating this page, or when LT embarked on this journey to create a page for Breonna Taylor, right? LT had to prove, right, that Breonna Taylor's, right, is more than just her killing, right? She was a significant person to her community. And so she herself, the person that she was, right, that she deserved that page, not just the article about her killing. And so that's the kind of like the challenge or the adventure that LT had to embark on, right, is to create that list of sources that are like, look, this person has these people writing about her, right, as Breonna Taylor, not, right, the victim of this terrible thing that happened to her. And so, yeah.
Thank you. I put a link to the actual article in case you haven't seen it. And I love how you frame this as a journey, because it absolutely has been a journey, Brianda. And first, I want to ask two questions. One, is anyone here already write or edit for outside of the folks who work for Wiki EDU or Wikipedia? Anyone here already an editor or writing for Wikipedia? No. Hey, Kat. I know there's times when it really does seem magical. Jean, that's good. Small stuff is still stuff though, right? So I'm glad that you're doing that. Hey, Brenda, what are the statistics in terms of like who writes and edits for Wikipedia? It's like 85% men, right?
Men, typically white men, from the global north, so like the US or like Europe. So that's mainly the demographic of the editors that are, right, creating a lot of this knowledge on Wikipedia.
And so when you take that into consideration, that demographic is going to influence the content that's on Wikipedia, right? So we have to keep that in mind. Before we get into some of like the takeaways and implications with regard to media, race, and gender, I did want to pause to see if anyone has any specific questions about the creation of that particular article. As Brianda mentioned, there actually are a number of sources that I had. It wasn't hard to find the sources. It's just that the page wasn't there. So any questions right now?
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Who said they have? Is that you, Melissa?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And this is probably just because I don't remember our last conversation, but what gets defined as a notable source or reliable source? Sorry.
Brianda, I'll turn it over to you, and then I see Jean has a question in the chat too.
Yeah. A reliable source. So a reliable source is a source that is independent of the topic, right? So it can't be something that, for example, we're talking a person, or let's say we're talking about me, right? And my page is in the making. It can't be anything that like I've written or that I've been involved with, excuse me. It has to be independent of me, right? So that's criteria number one. Criteria number two is that it has to be from, typically we're talking about like newspaper articles from mainstream publications, right? Something that has like broad coverage, or that is, has a reputation for fact checking, right? Reputation for fact checking, and I'm like, Will, you want to help me out? What am I forgetting? Oh, typically they come from like academic journals also. So mainstream publications, academic journals. Is that, I covered it?
I would say that's pretty good. Yes. The you asked about what counts as a reliable source, and an issue that we're up against a lot is that for underrepresented people is that a lot of the mainstream, a lot of these places that Breonna just mentioned are also mostly written by white and the global north, and that's something also that we at Wiki Education don't really have any control over. But where we do have control, over is changing the demographics of the contributors to Wikipedia, and that's something we so far the statistic is that Wiki Education is responsible for 20% of all new contributors to Wikipedia, or something like 19% of all new contributors, and that's pretty huge. And we have a lot of work to do if we want to change the rules as to what is a what are good sources of information, notability as well. And so, yeah, there was another question. Someone asked, was Breonna's notability ever challenged? I just want to share for context is that Breonna's article, the Wikipedia article, was created in I think it's May of 2020, which was 2 months after her shooting, her death, and
Not by me, it's by someone else.
by someone else, exactly. But it immediately redirected to the killing of Breonna Taylor. And it wasn't until, and I'm looking at the article history, it wasn't until June of 2022 that that you added something. I'm looking here, it's like something like 15,000 words or 15,000 bytes or so to the creation of that art, so that it's actually a fleshed out biography about Breonna Taylor, which is, I believe, is one of the reasons it has stuck and it's not being redirected anymore. So that's just what a difference it makes when someone has an invested interest, when another Black woman has an invested interest in documenting the history of another Black woman. It really shows the power of our community coming together to spread awareness about the issue or about a person.
So Andres, let me make sure that so everyone's understanding. So in June of 2020, there was a page created, but it didn't stick, so to speak, right?
It stuck, but what happened was that it was a redirect. So it essentially was like, it said Breonna Taylor it says Breonna Taylor at the top, and then right below it, it says redirect to killing of Breonna Taylor. And I'm happy to share the link here so people can see it. It's pretty fascinating, I would say.
But it wasn't about her, it wasn't her biography.
It was not her biography.
Is that making sense, y'all? So the page that I created is separate from the killing of Breonna Taylor. Got it. And then Josie asked, when you say source, is source the same as writer?
So by source, I was just typing up my response, right? By source, so it can be the writer. And if it is a writer, it's like who's the institution that, right, they're representing or that they're publishing with or through. Do they have an editorial board, right, that can like review the content that is being published, right? So we on Wikipedia usually like independent writers, like if they're writing like on their blog or something, right, that's typically not considered like a reliable source, right? So we want to understand like the system that they are a part of, and kind of, right, and the reputation that they're kind of linked to as they're writing their content, right? So if they're a journalist, it's like, who are they publishing their work through, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So is there like it's like an application process, and is there like a screening board? Like, is there somebody from Wikipedia screening people?
Well, I mean, they're Wikipedians, so it's all a community effort, right? So they are looking, that's why we encourage like mainstream news publications, right? Or like international newspapers, or like what I said, academic presses and such, right? So if there is a source, right, a fountain of information that you think is a reliable source, right, that typically isn't, or that doesn't have a big name or something like that, right, and you want to use them, you're like, no, this right, this source of information is legit, like we can use this to support this fact. Then you would have to engage with the community to kind of show them, right, why this source is reliable. Does that make sense?
But you see how like racism and all that can play a factor in all this. But you have to justify these so-called non-mainstream sources. This is where all the problems come in.
There are, oh, thank you, Will. That's a great, thank you for including that. There are something over 40,000 active volunteers on Wikipedia, and there are some people, I don't know what they're called, Will, the name of this kind of person, who just looks at new edits, and they just are keeping watch of like, what's new, what's being added right away, on Wikipedia. And I forgot what they're called, New Page Patrol, and who really are, who might not really be aware of the injustices and the issues going on in communities of color and underrepresented communities, and who don't have any sort of, who will never know. And so it's a sort of a, I'm sure there are a lot of people who do, but the more we get involved, then the more that we change the demographics of the online editing communities on the 7th most visited website on the planet, the more power we're able to give and representation we're able to give to communities, underrepresented communities.
I want to answer Jean's question and bring Melissa into this Melissa B into this conversation as well. So Jean asked about was Breonna's notability ever challenged? Maybe I don't remember the exact timeline. Andres could probably see it, but I want to say maybe 2 or 3 months in, someone did challenge the page that I created to say Breonna did not deserve her own page because she was only notable for being killed, right? And so I paused and I didn't react. Thankfully, like Andres said, though, there is a community that's watching, and another person chimed in and was like, that's the dumbest thing ever. How did it was a really interesting response. And so it was not overturned, obviously, especially when you take into consideration that George Floyd's page is existing as well. Before I ask Melissa to chime in, I wanted to ask folks why you think the George Floyd page was up and thriving and independent versus Breonna Taylor, and then we'll have an expert share her opinion. Your thoughts about that?
Yes, I was gonna unmute earlier. It wasn't
Go ahead,
necessarily
Zakia.
it wasn't necessarily a question, but this is my first time kind of like understanding the other side of Wikipedia, because especially like as a student, as a scholar, we were always discouraged from using that in terms of like researchers writing papers. And so I thought it was really interesting that you mentioned George Floyd had a page up, but Breonna Taylor didn't, because I think Black women oftentimes, living, non-living, we struggle with notability, even just in our experiences and having those acknowledged and validated. And so the fact that we couldn't publicly share her story outside of being a victim of a systemic issue, I thought was very interesting. And so I'm just really excited to kind of hear more about what that process looks like, because I think that's where we struggle a lot in just sharing information, sharing experiences, and helping people become more aware of what this looks like on the day-to-day. And so just the fact that a Black woman in death is still struggling to have her story told, I think says a lot about the society that we live in. So I appreciate this conversation.
Mic drop. Melissa Barragan is a professor of sociology at Cal Poly Pomona and is an expert on media, race, and gender, media representation, race, and gender. Melissa, love to, I remember distinctly talking with you on, we were just catching up on life, and I told you what we were doing, and you had such a visceral reaction to this. Wherever you want to go with this, go right ahead. I'm gonna pass it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So a little bit of my background, and why I think I had such a visceral reaction. I teach a class on media and crime at Cal Poly, and one of the things that we go through in the class is discuss how the media portrays crimes, criminality, as well as victimhood. And there's been increased attention to how kind of the intersection of these different issues with race and gender, sexuality and orientation, particularly for Black women, kind of come together to essentially silence the media and coverage of Black women in particular, especially if they also occupy other identities like being trans or being a part of the LGBTQ community broadly, if they're engaged in sex work. And so one of the things that I had mentioned to LT was a study that was done on homicide victims by race and the coverage of those victims in the media, and how importantly they were portrayed. Were they assigned complex personhood, meaning they were described as more than just a person that was killed and their victimization? Or were they described as kind of more full, complete human beings with families, with dreams, with hopes, with legacies in their community? And what this study found, and perhaps not surprisingly to the folks here, is that Black individuals were not only receiving less coverage over their killing, they also were limited in how they were described. So typically it was just that they were killed, name, age, community that they were from. And more often than not, if there was violence in the community, if it was gang related, white victims, on the other hand, were described much more fully and humanistically. And really the challenge with that is because oftentimes this is the only way we're going to learn about these killings is through the media. What these limited characterizations do is they cut off the possibility for empathy and cut off the possibility for more folks getting enraged, right, by these types of killings. And I think in Breonna's case, there was a confluence of events, I think timing being one of them, but I think the more coverage we have, right, that portrays these individuals in their fullness and in their complexity, the more outraged I think we're able to become because we know more about the person. So I'll leave it there in case folks have any questions, but there has been more attention to this, particularly by socio-legal scholars like Kimberly Crenshaw, who started the Say Her Name campaign back in 2015, and has really, I think, in many ways, like the Breonna page, and has tried to honor the lives of Black women that are killed by police by highlighting who they are, and not just the fact that they were killed by police, and drawing national attention to the lack of attention to Black women that are killed by police in particular.
Thanks, Melissa. It looks like Jerry has a question or a thought.
Yes, thank you for this space. It's really, I'm learning a lot and I'm taking a lot of notes. as well. Something that I'm really curious about, just hearing a little bit more about, um, the public perception and how perhaps um, the Wikipedia page, as well as broader like media, play a role in the public outrage and potentially impacting the outcome, whether it mean whatever the outcome might be, whether it's charging police officers who may be the perpetrators, or also encouraging that like the community outrage to hopefully hold people accountable. Because I remember quite frankly, in 2020, like initially there wasn't a lot of knowledge about Breonna Taylor in the first place, or what had happened. And it was like continual. Like I remember there was like a social media campaign of like, how many days has it been since Breonna Taylor was killed, and like where is the, public outrage? And so I wonder how resources like the Wikipedia pages could help to educate people and to tell that whole fullness story of their the victims of these heinous acts.
Yeah, I was thinking about something that Andres mentioned just about the sources, right? Because you can't, when you're writing for Wikipedia, you're not creating new knowledge, right? You're reporting knowledge that's already out there. So it's like a chicken or egg situation. Like it's got to be out there in the first place in order for you to add it as a source. So I want to acknowledge the Louisville Press, because they had that's where a lot of the coverage was about her specifically, and not just about her death, but like her family, what she was like as a student in high school, that she was good at math, like these types of things I found in the Louisville Press. The other was Vanity Fair, and there was a big cover story on her and more about her family. So those were the I'm really grateful for those pieces, because those were like the centerpieces of the creation of that page. Again, so you could just learn more about who she was, and as Melissa mentioned, like what her aspirations were, right? I think many of us, when we think of Breonna Taylor, may have that one picture in mind with her and the flag behind her, and she's got, I think she was being noted, recognized for some work that she had done as an EMT, but she was much more than that. And in fact, started off pre-med at University of Kentucky. Like nobody was saying that, right? So yeah, all those things matter, right, Jerry?
I would love to add to that with a chart here that I'm adding in the chat.
Uh-oh.
So, I was just looking at the charts, fascinating to see this, but data, but when Breonna Taylor, check it out, when she, it may not, oh, maybe it didn't go. I don't know if I added it correctly. Let's see. It probably won't but it's going to show you Breonna Taylor's page views there. And basically, when Breonna Taylor was murdered, you can see that she was murdered in 2020, and you can go back a little bit. I'm sorry, I didn't add the right, add the right dates. This is the correct chart. But essentially, like, people were looking for knowledge about her killing and about Breonna Taylor. But fast forward to June 2023, and you start to see a dip in people visiting the killing of Breonna Taylor, and they're going to Breonna Taylor's biography because there is information. And so we're starting to see an inverse right now, which is, I think, is like super awesome. And that's the sort of thing, that what a great way to remember someone, to learn about someone and to remember someone's memory, other than just this horrible experience. So yeah, if you type in killing of Breonna Taylor next to Breonna Taylor there, you'll be able to see the inverse relationship. But for some reason, I don't know how to get it to work from there. Will, if someone can help me. But
Can I ask, did I hear anything about what the process was for Vanity Fair? I didn't, that's a great question, Kat. I don't know that much about that particular article, but I did want to at least acknowledge the great role that it played, in like really helping to flesh out her biography. I was able to contact a few of the journalists who wrote for the Louisville paper, and I sent them the link to the page that I created and thanked them for the work that they've done. I did do that. Any other questions that you all have about either the creation of the page or your own thoughts or reactions about, you know, media and race and gender? I'm sure you're probably not surprised by much of that, but would love to just get your thoughts or what brought you here today.
Hey, Latanya.
Hey,
Hey, so I had a question about kind of like the I don't know, maybe like the personal politics of like what you include and what you don't. And so like I see that you have like different subsections, and I'm wondering, like, do you
yeah,
kind of let the sources speak for the
wow.
subsections? Do you have like a personal investment in including subsections? So
Ah,
it might be about like, I want them to know about Breonna within a either explicit or implicit political context, and then also like interests, or is it like, okay, whatever I see in terms of the sources, and I'll let that kind of bear the story that it tells and what I include and what I don't. So just kind of like the process of what goes in and what goes out. And
wow, Aaron, that is such a great question. So we got to just put out there like no storytelling is objective, right? So you're always got a lens with which you're approaching, and yeah, absolutely. So, you know, so I could just do a bare bones thing and like, oh, she lived here and she went to school here. But there were some things that were starting to come up and that made me go down a particular trajectory. So if you look at the page, you'll see things about like where Brianna is honored in art, right? Or some musicians that have honored her. I could have left that out, but I thought that was important to document, basically. I guess that's the word that I'm thinking about. Or what was some of the impact of her death? So what were some of the scholarships that were created or things that were honored in her memory? That initially, Aaron, that wasn't there, but as I started to see some of those things, I was like, you know what, let me create a whole section here, so that it could be highlighted. And oh my, I mean, Brandon, I hope you're so proud of me, girl, for like helping me figure all this out, because I knew nothing about creating. Like, oh, create a subset, like all these things matter. Creating a subsection means that you're highlighting it, right? That you want people to pay attention. It's not going to get lost in something. So initially, that wasn't the plan, but I noticed the more that I worked on the page, I tend to use the metaphor of a garden. Like the more I tended to it, the more things started to grow. And then the other thing I should share about this is I get Google alerts for Breonna Taylor. So if something comes up that's new, then I can add that as well. Right now, there's just more like post-trial stuff and things like that. And I don't focus on that. I tend not to focus on her murder at all. I focus more on like family, the community, and all that. That was a great question, Aaron.
thanks.
Other questions or thoughts?
I do have a couple of thoughts about the media, and I think just the world we live in now, where there's such an iterative relationship between social media and mainstream media. And I think in particular when it comes to people that are marginalized, like things will get picked up on social media oftentimes before they get picked up by mainstream media. So I think at times this can feel a bit deflating when it's like, oh, we're relying on mainstream media to create the story. But I still think that there's a lot of power in social media kind of starting that conversation to push mainstream outlets to then pick up those stories so that we do hear more about the intricacies of the lives of those that are lost to things like police violence or other forms of, systematic violence. But I say that because I think it could feel a little like, oh man, well, we have to wait on that. But I still think that there are a lot of interventions, that we can make as, just everyday people. And I think also as academics in terms of what we choose to write about and how we choose to write about the people that are often the subjects of our studies. Like, how are we highlighting them to give them more complexity and more voice so that maybe we could be one of those, reliable sources for highlighting the lives of people lost to police violence.
Well, so well stated. I just want to tell you all, like, truthfully, that June day, and I think it may have been the anniversary of Breonna's death. I was in the Zoom with Brianna and Andres, um, and they were like, "It's done. Just push send, right? Just the upload or whatever it was. I can't remember the thing." And it was a very emotional moment for me to like have that page go live, and then for it to actually exist. And I kid you not, I say hands down, it's the most important thing I've ever written. Even with the PhD and all that, it is the single most important thing because of the impact, because of the subject matter. Martina, hearing you especially, sis, say, how hard this is for the family. And I really think about how can I make her family proud, right? I really want to do right by her family, so that if they were to ever go on that page, they feel like not I, but that it really represents their loved one well. And so, yeah, I'm happy for that dissertation that no one's read, right? But outside of you, Mom, I know you read my dissertation, but but look at how many folks will read that Breonna Taylor page, right? And because it has to be sort of written in a sort of tone and style that is accessible, means more people, I hope, would sort of connect with it. But it was a really big deal. And also, I feel like I gained a superpower, right? Now it's like beyond Breonna Taylor, like I was reading I was listening to Criss Cross the other day, and I was like, I was watching that video Jump, and I was like, you know what? There's some things missing about their backstory. Let me go in and edit Criss Cross's Wikipedia page real quick, so I could just I could do anything. Is how I is how I look at it now. So it gives you a strong sense of like power and authority to do this, right? You don't have to wait for like magic to come and like you go, like you're part of the conversation. So it's been really great. Melissa J, do you want to talk a little bit about how others, what are some resources and opportunities for folks to get involved?
Why, yes, I do. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Joseph, and I am the outreach coordinator at Wiki Education. So after a really great and meaningful conversation, you're probably wondering, well, how can I do this? And I'm here to tell you. So as outreach coordinator, I have the wonderful job of recruiting people to our Wiki Scholars and Scientists courses, where you will essentially learn how to edit Wikipedia articles. As we've been talking about for this hour. And so as Andres mentioned earlier, the Wiki Education helps close the content gap by adding high quality information to high value articles. So we actually have a slew of civics and democracy courses that are coming up starting in just, I think, a week and a half now, that'll be going from January all the way into the spring. And I'm actually going to drop a link in the chat. There you go. Oh, it didn't hyperlink. I'm sorry. But you just copy and paste it, and it'll show you all of our upcoming courses. So all of our courses are free and virtual, and they span, I believe, 8 weeks for our civics and democracy courses. And so you'll be in a cohort of other subject matter experts, people within the community of that particular subject, and you will have the opportunity to add your own, I'm hesitant to say like unique perspective, right? Because you want to stray away from adding things that aren't like, that are just too objective, you know? So, but you will have the opportunity to edit articles and add your knowledge and expertise, I should say. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, feel free to let me know. And yeah, that's my commercial.
A great commercial indeed, Melissa. Thank you. Before we close, I did want to share like what's next. So there's going to be a part 2 specifically around the Breonna's Wiki page. We're going to focus a bit more on her educational journey. And also this notion, so Zakia, this actually ties directly into our work with Re-Up. But how we like reframe her as a stopped out student, right? Like I said, starting at a 4-year and then going to a community college, that's actually very, very common, specifically for Black and first-gen students, right? But again, we have to think of her in that way. And so there will be another conversation that's looking at Black first-gen students and stopping out, why Breonna would have been taking community college courses in healthcare as she, was seeking to, go on to earn another credential and a degree. So really trying to think about this in a larger context, but that's what we do, right? We use one person's life in order to make larger comments. So that is likely to happen sometime in February or early March. So be on the lookout for that as well. So if you have any thoughts about that, now's the time to tell me. Still putting it together, working with some folks from Compton College, in particular in the nursing school, nursing department, to talk about that. So before we close, any other comments or anything that you were hoping to get out of this conversation that you haven't gotten yet? Oh my gosh, Josie, I can't believe you put that baby on camera. I hate you right now. So cute.
But we're doing a buy, and I was like, okay, I'll show.
Can I say something?
Hey, Kat.
Hey, so I just want to say how proud I am. I'm sitting here like super proud. I remember when LT you first mentioned on social media, you were like, "Did you know Breonna Taylor was the first gen, like all the way from there?" So I think it was when you were kind of planting the seed of like taking on something like this. And I'm just so proud to see that, you went through it and you got it done, and it's so beautiful. And also just seeing Melissa Barragan on here too as my like graduate homegirl at Columbia. Just seeing you both here has really like made my day. Because I'm just so full of pride of both of you. So thank you so much for doing this work. It means so much, and let's continue to get Breonna's name out there and story and life. Yeah.
Thank you, Kat. Jean, I appreciate your comment about normalizing stopping out and nonlinear paths. Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that, and that will be the focus of next time.
I'd love to just share just one more pitch, if you'd allow me to. If you're interested or you know anyone who wants to implement teaching with Wikipedia into their classroom at a higher education institution, the impact in teaching young people and giving them media literacy skills, writing and research skills through a Wikipedia assignment speak for themselves. And all our modules cover these really important topics, especially this year, and strategically staying away from any political conversation, but especially this year, it's really important that we give students the ability to discern fact from fiction. So thank you so much, LT, for inviting me and getting me on, getting us in this conversation. So really thank you so much.
Well, really thank you, and thanks to all of you who were able to make it today. Many of you representing different aspects of my own life and my own academic, personal, and professional journey. So glad to have you here. Mom, you've been uncharacteristically quiet. Is there anything you want to say before we go? You're on mute though.
Well, quiet just because I was multitasking taking care of a crisis. But no, it was excellent discussion. You know, it was really, certainly I felt it myself about the discussion that Melissa had about not talking about, not giving more information about an individual because it normalizes them and it causes people to have some empathy for that person. And intentionality about not doing that, I felt was so important. That was a very important point. But no, so just LaTanya, as always, very proud of you and all the work that you do. It keeps me on my toes, all the stuff I have to read, all the articles that you write. So it was wonderful. But no, it was an interesting discussion, although I could not fully participate in it because of, you know, putting out a fire over here. But this is wonderful work. I'm glad you all are doing it. I'm proud of all of you. Congratulations, Josephine, on the baby. So show her, is it a boy or a girl?
It's a boy.
A boy. Yeah, show him one more time.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness, I didn't mean to.
So no, everybody, you know, I'm just so excited about the work that's going on. And Andrés, good to see you again. We met the last time. But I'm just excited about the work that Wiki is doing and how it's bringing stories to light about representation of women, representation of different ethnic groups. So keep up the good work. I'm excited.
Thanks. Say hi to Aaron.
Hey, Ann, how are you?
What's going on, Miss Gloria? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
It's-
I'm
it's
trying to
good.
hang in here.
It's a reunion. It's a reunion, y'all.
Oh, it is. And I'm in Costa Rica, everybody. So I'll
Okay,
send
you and
sunshine.
Aaron text on the side. All right. All
All
right. Thank you
right.
all, everybody. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here. The recording will go out.